we have an amazing group of presenters today. We have Ryan Pastor. He's a VDC Services Manager at Building Point Southeast. He's going to be talking about how they use AR, VR, mixed reality, really, on the construction site. It's super exciting to see it from their point of view. We also have Sam Anderson. She's actually with Epic Games. If you guys have maybe heard of, that Unreal Engine, she's going to talk about that. So super interesting approach at AR, VR. And then once again, lastly, we have the tip of the month over here on the very far right. Dan Stein will be talking about untethering VR, right? No cords. Walk, roam freely in your VR atmosphere or AR, right? Like Ryan on the construction site, I'm sure not having cords and being tethered is really important in that regard, right? Awesome. Well, little bit about us as BIMxt. You can see over here in the very top left, we have quite a bit of information about our group. We do have a group on LinkedIn where you can get a bunch of information about past meetings, recordings, and the information that we have to share about today's meeting. We'll also share up there. We also have a group of advisors that help run the meetings, organize the meetings, if you will. Very grateful for all of them. And of course, by clicking on many of these images and LinkedIn icons, you should, maybe next time, be able to get to the links. You can see over here, for example, the built. I'm going to be there. Hopefully you guys will be as well. If you double click on that, it will actually take you to the DBEI registration link and schedule. So we can go ahead and link some things to those images. Some of them have links, some of them do not. So without further ado, I want to give you guys a little bit about the center portion here about you guys, the participants. This is really geared for you. Guys have a wealth of information and we'd love to hear about it. So you can see we have these kind of different colored blue blocks, and all of those refer back to essentially a discipline. Okay, you can see that there's a little icon in the box that kind of shows you which icon or discipline is relative to that box or color. I'm kind of geared towards the BIMIT grouping, if you will. So I'm going to grab the one with the laptop, right click on it and duplicate, and that will allow me to place my notes around. So I can say, hey, I'm Dana and I'm calling from VA. So please, at the very least, let us know where you're calling from today. Any questions that you have for our presenters, any information you'd like to share, any ideas that you have for future topics at BIMxt, we'd love to hear from you. If you, for whatever reason, are having a hard time duplicating these notes, you can see over on the left panel within Mural, you can get to some different texts and shapes. We just want to hear from you. So make sure that you get your information up there. We do pick a random participant as a winner, and it looks like Michael. Congratulations. If you're on the call, Allison will reach out to you to tell you about how to receive your $25 Amazon gift card. I know that I would probably have spent that by the end of the day. Now, as you can see in the chat within Zoom, Allison is sharing the Mural link. So please get on there and join us and participate in the meeting. If you're unable to get on Mural, please use the chat. We definitely want to hear from you. But Mural allows us to kind of capture everything within the meeting. So don't want to take up any more time from our presenters, all of this wonderful information that we have on AR, VR. So to start off, we'll go off with Ryan. Hey, Ryan, how's it going today?
Good.
Thank you so much for joining us. Where are you joining us from?
I sit in Raleigh, North Carolina, but I work all throughout the Southeast.
Awesome. Well, I won't interrupt you anymore. Well, maybe a little bit as we go through, but please.
Yeah, feel free. If there's any questions, just let me know. I want to be super focused on the presentation, so just let me know.
Absolutely.
All right, so welcome everybody. My name is Ryan Pastor. I work for a company called Building Point Southeast. Just for clarity, we are a Trimble dealer, so I'll keep it as agnostic as possible. I like to just let people know that this is obviously not a sales pitch. I like to just kind of inform everybody of, what's out there in the industry. So just for clarity there, but Dana will throw a poll. I've got a poll just to kind of see where everybody's at. Do you know what the differences are between AR, VR, and MR? I have no clue. I'm confident. I kind of know, vaguely know, just to kind of get an idea. So we'll let that simmer for a little bit. Looks like we're about halfway. Just click there, like have looks like
maybe you play with it at home, right? Or your kids, you have kids or nieces and nephews, and they're in there. I want to get one just for Google Earth, right? It can like travel in VR. I think that would be amazing.
Oh yeah.
I'll go ahead and end the poll here and share the results. So as we probably expected, right? 4% had no clue.
Yeah, so it's been out there for quite a while. So a lot of people are at least familiar with it. So just good, kind of good to know the differences. So I'll go on to kind of explain the real differences, that we kind of see with it, right? So, on one of the end of the spectrum, you have virtual reality, and so that's where you're kind of fully immersed in your environment. You can kind of have controllers, but obviously, you can't really, see, like Dana said, there's a lot of kids. Kids are doing a lot of gaming these days in the industry. It's really good for high-end renderings, that design, just walking through a model, getting that first person, immersive view. You can do a lot with, the graphics, make it look very real. On the other kind of end of the spectrum is augmented reality. So this is traditionally done on a 2D display, usually a phone or a tablet or something like that. And you are essentially, if you remember Pokemon Go, that was kind of the big craze with where AR kind of started getting involved with iOS and Android on a mobile device, and so you could see like the little creature like on the earth. A lot of people didn't even use that feature, but it was there, and that's kind of what started AR. And I think the developers now for software are looking to implement that more. And then mixed reality kind of meets in the middle, right? So you're taking the immersiveness of virtual reality, but you're essentially somehow displaying, and seeing through it, and being able to overlay those digital images on top of the real world. So for us in construction and design, it's really beneficial because we're creating this one-off product of a building, and as we go into that environment, it becomes very beneficial. And you'll kind of see throughout my presentation that you can essentially use that in different ways. So I think the next poll will ask about, have you ever tried on a HoloLens 2 or XR10 with HoloLens 2? So this is a mixed reality device. Haven't had the opportunity yet. I've seen it live, but didn't put it on. We go to a lot of trade shows, so we have it there, and obviously the pandemic, COVID kind of threw a wrench in everything, right around the time that it was first birthed, right around the beginning of 2020. So I went, I was going to a lot of different places, and then, the pandemic happened, and then we were like, well, kind of don't want to put this on everybody's head, not the greatest look. So looks like we got everybody answered. Awesome. So yeah, it looks like majority haven't had the opportunity yet. Just let us know. We're obviously always doing demos. I encourage you guys to get out to different trade shows, places where different vendors are. Obviously, like I said, we're not the only vendor that has one. These are becoming more ubiquitous. So encourage you to, kind of get involved and, go out to different trade shows. So
yeah, I haven't had the chance either. I'd certainly love to.
Yeah, it's a lot different of experience. Once you put it on, it's a lot of people don't know what to expect. The videos that I'll show a video at the end. it shows it to be a lot more immersive than it actually is. That's kind of one of the limitations, is the field of view, versus the virtual reality where you're kind of that full immersion. So, but it is a very unique experience for sure. And just crazy to think that, this day and age, that it's even, this kind of technology even exists. I got to pinch myself sometimes and not take it for granted. So, but what I want to kind of focus today on is quickly verifying, work in place in the field. And so a lot of this stems from coordination, and coordination in and of itself is nothing new, right? We've always had to coordinate. As long as we've been building, we've always had to coordinate. Obviously that's gotten, since kind of the industrial revolution and, the advent of electricity and, complex HVAC systems, there's been more coordination between trades, that required, that's kind of where the split between mechanical engineers and electrical engineers happened. And, this, true collaboration and coordination. And obviously we don't always get it right in the industry. That's kind of a different discussion altogether, but, with 3D coordination, everybody's probably familiar with this. It's this BIM has been around, at least for 10 years, pretty heavily. So on the construction side and, coming into the design side as well. But, it's easier to visualize. You're really reserving that room and space. So from, the age-old issue has really been, how do we verify that 3D model in the field? And so, we have this great coordinated model, and really the only, way right now is to really kind of boil that down into, quote, dumb PDF, drawings, right? And paper drawings obviously are very burdensome. It's not easy to, carry around those. You'll see some of those, around still. I'm actually shocked at still how many people are kind of using paper drawings. Obviously, in the past 10 years, mobile devices have become more ubiquitous in the industry. Many are still only in 2D, your Procores, your PlanGrids, your, those devices, but a lot of those developers are starting to also incorporate 3D viewers to help better visualize, to really get that model data from, the, weeks, months, and sometimes even years, depending on the project size, that we spent in coordination, really just communicating the plan to the field teams. So, and some have augmented reality capabilities, kind of like we see in the bottom right here. There's a kind of a, this is an early example. You could see like that tablet probably doesn't even exist anymore. Most people we see are using, an iPad or, some version of iOS device, and Android phones as well. So, and obviously, there are a lot of different AR capability, AR applications as well. And so, what I think, for really verifying the work in place, mixed reality is the best solution, right? So you get to overlay, the virtual geometry onto the real world objects. The big thing that when you especially put it on a construction worker's head who, doesn't know how to fly around a model, using Navisworks on a computer, or, even some, viewers on a phone, it's kind of hard to get to where you need to be. It's a very immersive experience. So, you just kind of put it on, there's different methods to essentially do the alignment. But, one method currently is you put it on, you scan a QR code, and, the model just kind of pops into place right there. And so then all they have to do is just kind of walk around and, see what the model, see where the model objects are, and see, if that's lining up with what they're seeing. That can be done, kind of at the beginning stages, like you see in the video. In the middle, that's kind of, I guess it's more of a GIF, but you can kind of see that's a pre-walkthrough. So, as opposed to looking at a set of plans, you can just say, hey, this is what you're going to be installing. It just kind of provides that extra level of clarity where, if you're just looking at a 2D set of drawings or even flipping around a 3D model, it really gives you that context in the real world of what it's going to look like. So, in the bottom left, you can kind of see there's it's a very intuitive user interface. There's, kind of big buttons. It's a little bit different than VR because you're not using like a remote, and it's different than a touch screen, right? For those that are very tactile and like to, hit something, it's a little bit different. You're kind of like, interact from a third person, viewpoint. It looks like you're just, touching the air or, tapping the air. So it looks kind of funny from, if you're not wearing the device. And then the fourth point there is collaborative. So on the right, you can see top right, we call that co-located collaboration, where, you basically have the same model loaded in, and two or more, collaborators can essentially view the same model, and, kind of have a discussion out in the field. So similar to what a lot of companies are doing kind of in VR, you're doing it in mixed reality out on site. And then the other kind of collaboration is in the bottom right. This is an application for the HoloLens called, it's got a long name, Microsoft makes it, BIMxt 365, which is, kind of a solution, I think, around manufacturing, but it's called remote assist. So we normally just call it remote assist, but it's essentially just, you can draw, and I call it digital graffiti, right? So, you can kind of see down here where somebody drew and circled those, that it kind of stays there. So as the device is mapping the world, you're essentially drawing on the real world object. So that provides a lot of good collaboration, especially when we were in the heart of the pandemic. Nobody could go anywhere. People were just buying devices just to, have that functionality, to kind of replace that on-site presence.
I know at Smith Group, that's definitely something, especially in that middle GIF that you were showing, we use quite a bit to understand, the design and, whether the actual construction is meeting, where the design and what we intended, in a lot of different realms of things, especially in the healthcare side of things with nurses and nurses stations and trying to understand the time to get to those places. So I would love to hear from those of you guys in the, as participants, if you guys are doing things with this type of technology in this way. How are you using mixed reality in your workplace? So throw it in there on the mural on info to share.
Yeah. So like I said, I like to, give a lot of different options around, this isn't a sales pitch, but you can kind of see where the industry is right now, just around the software side and what's being developed for. So, Microsoft has spent years on end kind of developing the HoloLens, and it's kind of been the first product that has been commercialized and productized, if you will, and is kind of the best solution currently in the industry. But we have a couple others on there. Obviously, the Trimble XR10 makes it safe to use on site, but there's also, Magic Leap. I think I've read that they're kind of, falling by the wayside. Obviously, there's different sets of challenges with, different types of mixed reality viewers. Google Glass, if you remember them, I feel like they were too early for the industry, but they're still around as an enterprise edition. Kind of looks a little bit different. And then we have those that kind of failed, and I think it's important to recognize those as well and say, hey, kind of why did that happen? I think it just lends itself to the fact that it's still a very emerging technology. There's a lot of challenges that you have to overcome. Daiquiri, I know a couple of people that actually bought a Daiquiri helmet, and they were like, unfortunately, it was all kind of smoke and mirrors. The videos that they were creating didn't really line up with the expectation that they were, giving as part of the user's experience, which, kind of caused a disparity. And that's kind of what ultimately led to, I think, their demise. But this on the software side, I think this is going to grow, especially in the next few years, and especially as hopefully we see, more devices hit the market. I think Lenovo's working on something that I've heard recently. If you guys have any others, feel free to put them in the mural that I might not know about, because you'll see them on LinkedIn or you'll see them at a trade show, but this is kind of a very emerging space. So be interested to hear everybody's interest there. So I've got a few examples from things that we're looking at on site. So for quality control, this is kind of after the fact, which I think the greatest value is more that I call it in situ quality control. So as a worker's installing work, installing a hanger, installing a stud, or whatever it's modeled, you can say, hey, that looks good, that's where it's going to be, or whoa, hold on, where did you get that information? Oh, you have revision 5. Well, we're on revision 10. Like, let's get you the latest drawing set, right? Things like that. So this is, you can kind of see, through the elements, and obviously there's some, construction tolerances, things aren't going to be exactly perfect. And then, one item that needs to be addressed is drift as well. So sometimes, that if things aren't lining up, that might be a reason why. But and then from a detailing standpoint of view, I can kind of see how the field might react to something, where okay, I took it straight down and went an eighth bend to a Y. It's like, well, okay, they wanted to reduce a fitting, and go quarter bend straight to the Y. So just reducing bends there. But you've got to be careful, and that's kind of where the value is here, is like that reroute could have caused some change, right? Or there could have been a light there. There may have been a reason why the coordination team didn't put something, and the field didn't know about it. So the added benefit there is you're able to essentially load all the models, and we were able to check this one specifically and say, okay, nothing is there. It's an acceptable variation. We could mark it up on the red lines. If we really needed to, we could laser scan it, kind of do an as-built model from that if necessary. And then one thing around quality control, that's bad is, this is an example where I saw this in the field. I said, okay, this floor drain was supposed to be here, and it actually got installed there. You can see the vent's a little bit off in the chase, but I didn't have the other model elements loaded in, but I went back to the model and said, oh no, that's not good. That floor drain was supposed to be below this, which is an ice maker, and now it's below this over here, which is the casework, the cabinetry. And so finding this early on in construction is obviously beneficial, as opposed to at the very worst case, you're going to maybe find it when the cabinet guy's coming installing. It's a Friday at 2:30, he's trying to get home, and he's like, whatever, let me just throw the cabinet on there, and then you kind of come back, and the ice maker guy shows up and says, hey, where's your floor drain to drain the condensate to? And you go dig in and find out that it got covered up, and then you got a bunch of rework, and you're trying to get your certificate of occupancy. So obviously the earlier that you find a mistake, the better off you are as far as reworking it. Obviously, if this would have been done before the slab pour, you would avoid kind of chipping up concrete there. So just finding those mistakes is really beneficial. And then I'll leave you with this. This is a kind of, I want people to understand, mixed reality is just a different way of viewing and interacting with data. So, you can see different examples. This is an example of a steel model from Tekla. All a cut section is an annotating, on a plane, right? So this is essentially an example showing what those, cut sections look like that are, in the context of the entire beam. So, you can view essentially, even though we're not going to currently build from a model, you can start viewing, 2D line work on top of the model itself. So this is an example, forgive the kind of the roller coaster. I'll pause it, but this is essentially showing 2D line work laying on top of the, I posted this to LinkedIn. If anybody follows me, you can see some good banter there. I jokingly said like, hey, why, the other emerging technology is the, the robot that prints all this line work on the slab, right after it's poured. And I said, oh, hey, why do you need that? You could just have this. And some people are like, oh, well, everyone needs one. And I'm like, all right, just to get the, I always like good healthy conversations and banter. But yeah, you can kind of see from these different screenshots, we're seeing that immersiveness between the 3D model and 2D drawings, right? So and as developers, develop more, we can start obviously, information load our 3D content. So I would argue that would eliminate, maybe not eliminate, but reduce the need for 2D drawings, right? So instead of it, we might still have the dimensions on the ground, but instead of the 2D annotation of the duplex box, we would just be able to click on it and see what circuit this is tied to. And so as all that information is being loaded into the BIM, we'll be able to kind of start viewing that data a lot more and in real time, in context of where it's supposed to be. So, and you can see even there is kind of drift and some errors, but I mean you can see right there, you can see 2 3 1/4, and we're like right there 2 3 and I think like 3/8 or something like that. So it is very valuable. The information is still there. So instead of going back to a drawing, pulling up your tablet, figuring out where that drawing is, you essentially just walk into a room, scan a QR code, and you can essentially data load. This is an apartment, for example. You can just data load on different layers, turn the lighting layer on, turn the diffusers on and off, things like that. So I'll leave you guys with that. Feel free.
Before you leave us, we do have a few questions, which I think you answered one of them about drift. So it seems like there is still a little bit of a drift issue. The other question is just kind of to summarize it. I believe it's mostly about collaborative VR. Have you worked much in terms of a team being within VR, AR, or MR? And how that kind of works out, and especially in the time of the pandemic, right?
Yeah. If anybody follows Microsoft, so they announced a year and a half ago, maybe, Microsoft Mesh, and it's this idea of, like, what does it look like for me to be on site wearing a mixed reality headset? Obviously there's a cost around it, $5K plus, but so everybody can't have one. But what does it look like for somebody else with an iPad to be viewing that same thing? And then oh, let's chime in the design team and bring them in, and they have a VR headset on, and kind of that collaboration. So it's not quite there as far as kind of that cross-platform integration right now, but that's definitely something that's on the developers' radars. Really starting to tie in all the different realities. We call it XR, extended reality, that kind of encompasses all of them. But that's, I think, just keep your eyes on the developers and see where that heads next.
So one other thing, and I think this is a really valuable question, have you incorporated point clouds? I can definitely see where that would be a huge advantage.
No, just it's such a big data set.
So talk about drift, right?
Yeah, point clouds are like, gigabytes, and we're struggling, in its current infancy to, load in, a floor of, all the MEP trades. So loading in a point cloud, I guess my argument against that is, the kind of the intent for me is to be in that space. And I think the only time I could really maybe see the benefit, is maybe load, like instead of modeling from a scan, you could just scan, and then kind of like that. Another application that we didn't really get into is kind of that on the backside with owners, and saying, hey, what's in the walls, right? Like being able to have that X-ray vision, you could more easily take a 3D laser scan and then, that's obviously if it was done right before closing, then you could, basically just see the room and see where all the pipes are, where all everything is overhead, and you don't necessarily have to have an as-built model because that whole process is a very timely, costly, process of, updating an as-built model to a scan. So those are kind of my thoughts around the point cloud and mixed reality.
Well, thank you so much. I know we probably will get more questions, and probably a few that I didn't ask you, or you have the chance to answer one particular about the QR codes that you were mentioning. So we will make sure that those get answered, if not in the mural specifically, then after, if we have some time at the end.
Yep.
So one quick thing, just for those of us who have joined, a little bit of a quick tutorial here. Our center section within the mural. So sorry for those of you guys who have already been adding, and thank you so much. We essentially have the system where each discipline has an icon, right? So you can kind of see over here, the BIMIT is the laptop, right? That's kind of where I fall in terms of my discipline. And so I would just right click on the box with the laptop and duplicate it. And that will allow me to move this guy around wherever I want. So please let us know where you're calling from. If you've used VR, we'd love, or AR, MR, XR, we'd love to hear your experience and your use case. So please share on the mural. There's definitely in the chat, in the Zoom, the link to the mural already. So without further ado, I am super excited. We have Sam with Epic Games talking about Unreal. It's a mouthful.
It is. There's a lot there, but hello, everyone. I am Sam Anderson. So I am at Epic Games. I'm a technical marketing manager, but prior to Epic, I was at Shop Architects for 5 years, working on AR, VR, research and development for a lot of things, more based towards the design side. So my experience is a little more design based. And the stuff I'll be showing you today is a little bit more design and visualization based, and hopefully it can provide some inspiration for you. But my role at Epic is now to kind of produce content and speak at these events and conferences to help everyone kind of get familiar with the tools that are there, and how can we help you learn and be able to explore these. So I've shared a few links on the mural board if you want to take a look. I'll be talking a little bit about Twinmotion and Unreal today, and so I'll dive into that a little bit, but let me go ahead and share my screen. Let's see.
And coming through over here.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So as I mentioned, I'm going to be focusing the conversation today on AR and VR. Epic Games does encompass a lot of different stuff. So I am going to take a little bit of time to take a step back and showcase that as well. If you're like, what, Unreal, Twinmotion, Epic Games, there's a lot going on there. So if you have children, maybe you're familiar with Fortnite, or not even if you have children, if you like playing video games, then you may be familiar with Fortnite. So that's a little bit more of the publishing side of Epic Games. But in order to produce those games, they do have the rendering engine, which is the Unreal Engine. And on that other side, we are trying to make 3D experiences much easier for people to create. And so we have quite an umbrella of different softwares that are enabling that these days. So we have Twinmotion, which is going to be the easier to use, drop in a BIM model, quickly visualize it, and produce images and videos in virtual reality very quickly. And then Unreal Engine is going to be for the more, advanced bespoke needs. So if you need to do some augmented reality design configurator, anything that you can imagine that you want to do, it's usually pretty possible with Unreal Engine. It does have a steeper learning curve. So that's where Twinmotion could come into play if you don't have specialists at your firm or on your team. Now, we also have some new additions to the Epic ecosystem, which includes reality capture. So I know there was a question about point clouds. And so that is something that Epic Games is looking to make a little bit easier and have a software that can handle all of those data points. So if you're not familiar with reality capture, I'd encourage you to check that out as well. Now, these game engines are not just for games and architecture. It's used a lot in other industries such as film and automotive. And something that has been really exciting for me to see, kind of coming from architecture and then now working in a place that has an engine for a lot of different use cases, is it's fascinating to see all of the different problems that all these industries have and how can we solve them. So, a lot of the stuff that Ryan showcased today was, we have a 3D model and a real life example. How can we combine those? And, you see a lot of that in film even. You have a green screen or an LED wall, you have the physical person, and then you have these 3D models and CG. How do you combine them? So there's a lot of interesting technology and research and development that's going into them that I think that architects will be able to use in the future. So I find that super inspiring, and we're starting to bring in some of those tools. So if you're familiar with Unreal Engine, like the remote control API is like one of those instances where someone could be on Unreal Engine on their computer, and then someone has an iPad or a tablet and is able to control the settings on that tablet. So there's a lot of instances like that that you can imagine could be helpful for different industries. Now, where does BIM sit into this? So BIM is going to still happen in the original models or the DCC programs. So you'll be able to bring BIM models into Twinmotion or Unreal Engine using the Datasmith file format. So that's a file format that we've created, and it's going to be able to bring in your materials and metadata into the software so you can still have access to them. And we've recently developed some direct link for those, so you are able to make changes in that original software. So if you're working in Revit, you can make changes, synchronize, and it will adapt and update in Twinmotion and Unreal Engine. And so once you're in the software, we really want to make it easy for you to aggregate a bunch of different data. So say you're working on a huge project with a lot of different BIM models, you can bring all of those into Unreal Engine or Twinmotion. If you have someone working in SketchUp, or the landscape architects in Rhino, maybe some furniture from the interior designers in 3ds Max, you'll be able to aggregate all of that data inside Twinmotion and Unreal. You'll be able to collaborate with other people, develop worlds, really build out your environment, and then choose the platform that you want to take it onto. And so on the design side, where we're seeing a lot of augmented reality and virtual reality is in some of these sectors here. So we're seeing a lot of data visualization and real-time design. I also referred to some of the design configurators. So if you have a project and you're looking at different facades, you'd be able to switch between different facades, and you're able to create a user interface inside Unreal Engine so that the person interacting with the experience can kind of pick those different things. So there's a lot of different options and a lot of different things that we're seeing, but I just wanted to kind of list a few of these to show kind of that it's not just about storytelling or final presentation or final pixels. There's a lot of collaboration in the middle. So I'll showcase this video. This is from Foster and Partners. So this is a part of a virtual reality experience. So they wanted to showcase this tower. So they were designing it in virtual reality. And so they were using VR inside of their office. But they also wanted to showcase this to all the stakeholders. And so what they did was they took a point cloud of the context. So another reference of where does point cloud come into play with this? But they took a point cloud of the context and applied the project in relationship to the point cloud, and then we're able to bring that to real life, go to the site, and be able to take a look at it. So this one you're seeing here, it does have like it's quite a contraption that he has on, but it is an option. And so you'll see here, this is a way that multiple people can engage in the experience at once by putting that tablet on the outside and still allowing someone to have further interaction with it. Now you can also do this for AR as well. So let me jump into the next video. So let's see. Here we go. So this is an augmented reality experience. So this is showcasing the design in the context. And I know at Shop we did a lot of this as well. So it was very informative for clients to be able to go and understand what exactly this is going to look like in this space. And you could get creative with it. Like if maybe this is a way of engaging the community as well. Like perhaps you have a QR code on the fence on the outside of the construction so that people can scan it and take a look at it themselves on their mobile phones.
It's interesting, the videos with the guys, the headset, it seems like you need like a follow person to make sure you're not gonna like get hit by a biker or
Exactly. Well, that's the use. I guess that's where you want to understand the use case, which Ryan did such a good job of explaining kind of all the different options. Like in that instance, maybe you do want mixed reality of more of a HoloLens experience. And so there's kind of, before you even get into designing it all in some of these engines, you're going to want to know what is the final option or the final experience. And so here, what we're taking a look at is a little bit before you get to that. This is collaborating inside the engine. So you'll see that there's two people in here. They're able to interact. They're able to, you'll see on the other side, you're also able to use a section tool. So that's something that was new in Unreal Engine 4.27. So there's a few new features for architecture specific for the collaboration template. And so this is going to really enable you to have an experience inside virtual reality with multiple people in it. So just to clarify, this is for Unreal Engine. So Twinmotion does have virtual reality aspect, but you won't be able to collaborate in it just yet. But one of the nice things about having kind of both of these things is any of the technology that gets developed for one, we're able to kind of pull pieces and mix between the two. So, and this slide is kind of showing all of the different platforms. So we are striving to be pretty agnostic as far as the end platform. We have just integrated OpenXR into Unreal Engine. And so whenever you're developing, you'll be able to pick the platform that you need and is going to best work for you. And so, as I mentioned, and kind of how, as Dana brought up, understanding what is the end use case is actually really helpful. So if this is something that you're interested and want to start dabbling in, I would first encourage you to take a look at the problem that you're trying to solve. So is it more construction based of the problem that you're trying to solve? Or is it design based? Like, do you want to be able to take a look at the design before you start building, even inside of your office? Or is it more about being in virtual reality with other coworkers or other designers to understand how you guys are both looking at a space at once? And so once you decide that, you'll be able to bring your BIM assets into the real-time engine. And so once again, we have the Twinmotion and the Unreal Engine. So if you have never experienced any of these, I would encourage you to start with Twinmotion. That's going to be the easy to use platform. However, if you have someone on your team or if you yourself are interested in exploring more, Unreal Engine is going to be the place where you have a lot of different options and can really customize it. And we have a lot of resources out there, and that's what I'm here for. If you ever have any questions, I can point you to some resources that are going to help you get you in the right direction. And I also wanted to share Twinmotion Cloud because, a lot of this stuff can be very expensive to get, hardware, or even expensive time-wise of spending to get everything put together into the package and deliver that. And so we do have Twinmotion Cloud now, which allows you to send a link of your project to stakeholders, colleagues, partners of your firm, and it doesn't matter how great their computer is. They could have a, very, very old laptop, and it won't matter as long as you have a good internet connection. They'll be able to take a look at the model. You can create panorama sets. You can walk around the model. And so you'll be able to access this on tablets, computers, mobile devices, as long as you're on the browser. And so this is something that we're going to continue to improve. And so this isn't necessarily, MR, AR, XR, but it is a way of sharing information and understanding how do we communicate this 3D model to someone, and how can we help improve that communication process. And so I did want to bring this up for everyone in case you're interested. And I'll end here. I have a few more slides that are a little bit more based off of some of the new updates for Unreal Engine 4.27. So if that's something you're interested, feel free to reach out to me and I can kind of point you in the right direction. So it's just some of our new AR, VR features that are a little bit more technical related. So I don't want to dive into them, but I did want to let people know if this is something that they've explored in the past, that we do have some new features that are hopefully making it easier for architects to dive into. So I'll end there and I'll stop my screen share. And, but yeah,
Thank you so much, Sam. That was really, really interesting. One question that we've gotten so far, and keep them coming, you guys, as Dan finishes off with the tip, is does Twinmotion support Formit or SketchUp?
So it does support SketchUp. I'm not 100% sure on Format. If Format is able to export as an FBX or OBJ, it will be able to bring in those models. But there is a direct link to the SketchUp. So there is that Datasmith plugin that I was referring to for Revit and Rhino. You're able to do that with SketchUp as well.
Awesome. So yes, you can export. I see a lot of nodding heads. You can export Format out to
Perfect.
those,
So you can bring in an FBX model.
Well, last but certainly not least, looks like Dan has joined us, or as we call him on BIM Thoughts, the armadillo. If you guys follow BIM Thoughts, it's a podcast that myself and a few others do. We're very fond of Dan. So welcome, Dan. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here. And I used to be called the polar bear when
You got to move on us.
Yep. Although I've yet to see an armadillo in my almost 2 years now in Texas, so it's kind of a funny nickname I was given.
It's all Bill, all Bill.
Yep.
Well, once again, thank you so much for joining us. You want to let everybody in the group know a little bit about you?
Yeah. Can you see my slide?
Oh, I sure can. There we go.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm just going to keep it informal and not go into full presentation mode. This is actually a little bit of a stripped down version of a presentation I just gave at NVIDIA's GTC conference about 4 weeks ago. So I'm a registered architect. I work at Lake Flato, which I'll have a slide for in just a minute. I also teach graduate architecture students at NDSU and written a bunch of books and have a blog called BIM Chapters. I also write. Enscape has commissioned me in the past to write blog posts for them and presented all over the world. I'm the chair of a IES BIM Standards Committee. I'm a co-author of the forthcoming AIA Climate Action Guide for Practice. And then also, most recently, just starting last week, I'm on the AIA COAT Committee for Climate Action and Climate Justice, a national level committee. So fun stuff. Lake Flato, if you're not familiar, is a top ranked firm in the US. We've won, I don't know, I've been here almost 2 years now. I always say I'm new enough to still feel like I can brag about it, but maybe not anymore. I'm just bragging, I guess. We've won more of the AIA COAT awards than any other firm in the US and have several books published, and our work is national. We got a couple of projects, for example, at Cornell and one at UPenn, and some projects on the West Coast and on some islands in the Pacific and the Atlantic. Here's a couple examples of some of the projects that have won the COAT Top 10 Award. And now I'll just get into it because I know I only have like 30 minutes, right? Just kidding. I think
You make me nervous there. I love it.
So although I'm talking about Untethered VR, I've done a lot with the Microsoft HoloLens. I heard that Sam mentioned that earlier. Here's Ted Flato. We use the HoloLens to envision our current office that is completely being remodeled right now. And we used Fuser, which it has an add-in for Revit, has the ability to export a Revit model almost directly to the HoloLens. It goes to its own intermediate environment. But when it pushes it to the HoloLens, it's pretty cool because it maintains all the textures. Like you can see the carpet and the wood, the wood is probably not the right texture, but it's a texture. And then not only that, but all the Revit categories are assigned to voice commands. So you can say things like hide furniture, isolate structural, show all, and rotate 45 degrees, scale 1:1 or scale 1:20. And it's just doing all this stuff just based off of your voice, which is pretty satisfying, I gotta admit. And then you can just barely see it, but you can tape a QR code somewhere in the building on the elevator, something that's not moving, and then position that actually in Revit. Fuser has the ability to put it there, or you put it in the Fuser software. And then once you have that hologram enabled, you can walk through our entire 3-story building, going up the stairs, down the entire floor plate, visualizing the new superimposed amongst the existing. It's quite robust. And then you can also add voice commands. So to optimize this, because our office remodel is fairly large, you can say isolate second floor, and that will cause everything else to disappear so that it's running much quicker. So this is just a capture from within the HoloLens where you see the existing and the new, and the new obscures the existing fairly well, which is pretty cool. So the jumping into the untethered VR part, the struggle is real part is that having a high-powered laptop and then also having to have a tethered device is very limiting. In our office, everybody in the firm has a lightweight tablet with a stylus, and then we use VMware to remote into a high-powered computer. So this tablet can't run VR. And all of our VR devices are a Quest 2. That's the only thing we use with inside-out tracking. So our typical workflow is 80% of our staff use Enscape. It's our only visualization tool. Sorry, Sam. And then unless you call it Photoshop, that's our only visualization tool, and hand sketching. So from there you can go to EXE, and we have these checkout laptops, and so the backup is a cable, and then you can also go to Panorama, and we use Ulio. Both of those are on the Quest 2. But more recently, the value proposition that I'm going to propose here is we've been doing some work with Cloud XR, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. So that allows, you don't even need this tablet here, but the tablet can remote into this remote AWS instance that's running an Enscape EXE, and the headset also connects to that instance, and you can do VR anywhere over a robust Wi-Fi connection or even 5G, and I've actually even done it on 4G. So again, Enscape has some things that are optimized for the RTX cards, and then Cloud XR is optimized for RTX. So there's a little bit of double bonus, if you will. So it's using the AI-enabled deep learning, super sampling, and RTX-enabled ray tracing. Just as a case study, I want to show you a project where the client actually right now is also looking at setting up Cloud XR, Alamogordo, New Mexico Independent School District. We're designing this new middle school for them. And here's a quote from one of our partners, Brandy Rickles, about just the value that Enscape real-time rendering and VR brings to the process. And just to share a couple of renderings, I'm going to jump ahead here because I know we don't have much time left. But the other example, so that I'm going to go back to Cloud XR in just a minute, but what our standard is right now, Cloud XR is still sort of in the proof of concept area, to be honest, but we're using it on that particular project, and the client wants to start using it themselves. Our standard now is to have this low cost. In fact, this first one was one I found in my closet. I pulled this Wi-Fi router out of the closet. It's not connected to the internet. This laptop, not connected to the internet. You put an Enscape EXE, which is an exported standalone file that contains the Revit, SketchUp, Rhino, ArchiCAD, Vectorworks model, and enough of the Enscape code to fire up Enscape. When the EXE is open, you can enable VR, and this yellow cable connects the laptop to the Wi-Fi router. The Quest 2 has this newer AirLink feature that can connect to the Wi-Fi router. So when you go in and connect, it says connected, no internet. You don't need internet, it's not required. It's just replacing the HDMI cable. And it's a dedicated Wi-Fi router. We just stick it in the bag with the laptop now, instead of having a 25-foot USB-C HDMI or USB-C cable. This allows the client a lot more freedom to walk around and spin around in circles, and much bigger play area for one of our residential projects, the client can get a real feel of the kitchen. For our commercial projects, you could be at the reception desk, getting sight lines, sitting in a chair. I worked on a hospital project at my previous firm where one of the nurses ran down the hallway and grabbed a wheelchair and was, basically spinning around in circles in the new hospital ER layout. So back to Cloud XR. I'm just buzzing through this kind of quickly because it's a lot to share. So here's an example of Brandy, the partner that had the quote earlier, using Cloud XR. There's no computer that this headset's connected to, yet she's navigating the Enscape model. It's only connected to Wi-Fi in this building. And here's an example of recording in the Quest 2 headset on that same project. So I'm in Texas, San Antonio. The closest AWS server for us is in Ohio. So you have to have really good latency for this to work. But the Cloud XR platform, or whatever you want to call it, it over renders the scene. And so what's happening is I'm turning my head, it's sending a message to Ohio that I've turned my head and responding fast enough with the rendered view to actually get this kind of quality. When we get into the gym, you'll see I'll turn my head really fast just to kind of try and mess it up. And what's so different about this, and Dana, cut me off when I'm out of time, I'm fine with that. But what's so different about this compared to when VR came out, I can actually see my Oculus DK2 on the shelf over there, right? Is that the scene would get out of sync with your head and your brain would hurt and you'd get motion sickness. But now it keeps basically 50% of the center always in front of you and properly rendered. And if need be, it drops off the frames on the left, as you're seeing here. And it ends, the result is a perfectly acceptable experience that you can do without lugging a 50-pound precision with that RTX 5000, which is what those laptops have, and actually what everybody has access to in the firm. So pretty cool stuff. There's it works on your own servers. You can use it on Microsoft, this Cloud XR thing that NVIDIA has created. But if you want to do it through AWS, they have this thing that's free for this part, where it'll set up the drivers and everything on the Amazon AWS instance. And then depending on the graphics card that you use, latency is important. So Ohio is the best for where I'm at. Oregon was the best for New Mexico. The type of graphics card you have relates to how much it's going to cost. So $1.94 an hour is all that this costs to run. We have it set up in this proof of concept anyways on a free tier. Ideally, you'd have a static IP address so that the little NVIDIA Cloud XR app in your headset actually can find the instance super easy. But $30 a month, $40 a month is sort of what we've been paying. You have to remember to turn it off when you're done using it. Otherwise, it'll be a lot more expensive. But that's my last slide.
Well, that was actually perfect timing. We have a minute left. We do have a few questions in the mural. One of them being, have you tested the wild? Which I'm sure you have. It's just acquired by Autodesk, right?
I've tested it at Autodesk University, and I think wearing one of those HP backpacks that I saw in one of Sam's pictures that Foster and Partners had. But yeah, we pretty much, Enscape's not the best rendering engine, but it's kind of the best overall platform in my opinion. So I haven't done too much with other things. Fuser I've worked with, but mainly just because it has a really great HoloLens app and support.
Do you know whether Enscape is going to use, start to support collaborative VR, AR? I feel like that's a really big part of our, design team process.
Right, and I think, as you said, with Autodesk acquiring it and perhaps integrating it into BIM 360 projects, which we have a lot of projects. We're only architects, so we're always collaborating with MEP and structural and hosting our projects in BIM 360. So there, maybe an opportunity to branch out in tools, but yeah, I guess I'm not really aware, or not sure if what I know I can share with what Enscape's doing. So I don't know.
Well, it looks like everybody is very excited and very interested in seeing more of that presentation. So if a recording is available, we would love to, if you want to share it with me or Allison, we can definitely get that up on the LinkedIn group.
Yeah, I have a blog post from 3 months ago, maybe on BIM chapters, which is sort of the same framework for what I just presented. And then the NVIDIA GTC, I think you can still register for that. They had like a deadline, a month after the conference where you could still register and watch the sessions. And after that, I think they're still available, just in a different platform.
Well, it means we'll just have to have you back sooner than later.
Be glad to.
Well, thank you so much, Dan. Thanks so much, Sam and Ryan. You guys, that was so cool and so awesome to see it from such differing perspectives. So thank you all so much. And thank you all to the participants that came in today, shared on the mural. Definitely was an active mural today, active chat. So thank you all, and we hope to see you next month.